What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Brown. This is the Heresy Financial Show, and today I've got a fantastic guest on the show for you today, Per Bylund. He is one of my favorite modern-day Austrian economists. He is the assistant professor of entrepreneurship and Records Johnston Professor of Free Enterprise in the School of Entrepreneurship at Oklahoma State University. On top of that, he is the author of fantastic books like this one, The Seen, The Unseen, and The Unrealized. Link below. Per, thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so that's value. Moving into regulation, let's talk about number one, what regulation is, and then number two, how does that impact the kind of the value creation, people seeking to maximize value in free exchange.
Right. So we already talked about how regulation needs to be effective, or it doesn't really matter. Right. So the only way regulation can be effective is to keep you from, or basically prohibiting certain choices. So it will either make certain choices more costly by imposing a tax, or it will simply be a prohibition saying that you cannot, like is typically the case with drugs, right? You're not allowed to do drugs. Okay. End of story. So it still means that you can do drugs because people are doing it. We all know that. But it comes with a severe penalty if you do and if you get caught, right? Which means that many people might not pursue it. It might be too costly. They might not want to try it anymore. And of course, this goes with anything. So, for instance, there was a regulation before in many countries that you could not do research on nuclear power. And why? Well, simply because we don't want nuclear bombs. Well, I mean, obviously, if you can't do research on nuclear power, you also cannot produce very effective nuclear power plants. So we would not get those power plants. That would be the outcome of it. And to the extent that those regulations were effective, we would simply not get those better power plants. And instead we get Fukushima. Who knows, right? It's hard to say. Right. That's probably not what they expected with that sort of regulation, but that's what we got, right? So regulations affect people's choices. It stops you from pursuing and attaining some valued end that you have on your list that you otherwise would try to pursue, right? Because otherwise, that one is lost to you. And therefore, you change your behavior. So any effective regulation would necessarily take some of these options away from you, or make them way too costly, or make them simply impossible. So what this means then is that you would choose probably something else. I mean, if you have money and you go to the store and you want to buy something and they're out of it, you still might need dinner, so you might buy something else. But you're not going to buy what's at the top of your list because that's why you went to the store, and you can't buy that anymore. So you're gonna buy something else. It's not as funny. It's maybe not as tasty. You wouldn't have chosen this if they had whatever it is that you went there to buy, right? So you're gonna pick something that's lower on your list. And the same thing with regulation. That if a regulation is making one of those options too costly or even impossible that you otherwise would have pursued, you're pursuing something else instead. So you're pursuing something that to you is of lesser value by necessity, because you would not have chosen it had you had the other options, right? So this is, of course, is the case for any regulation that is effective. That people choose different things, or maybe they might choose not to pursue an end at all, right? I mean, sometimes we choose to buy something, and if you can't buy that, then you're just going to put the money in your bank account, or you wait till tomorrow, or whatever it might be, right? But you're going to choose something that you would not have chosen otherwise, and that because you would not have chosen it otherwise, it's necessarily of lower value to you, which of course makes you poorer, right? That's what it means. You cannot satisfy those highly valued wants that you have. You're gonna have to go for something that is of lesser value to you. Still the same purchasing power, perhaps, and everything, but you're gonna lose the difference between what you would have chosen and what you can't choose.
So I'll recap just to make sure I have this down, and then I would like to present kind of a challenge, what I think would be the counterpoint that argument. Humans will, by definition, pursue activities and actions that will maximize their own wealth, maximize their own values, based on the fact that it's all subjective. Value is subjective. So every action I'm taking is done in the effort to maximize my own wealth and value creation. And by any regulation entering the picture, the only thing regulation does is change behavior that would have happened otherwise, if it's effective. And so if it does change behavior, that means by definition it is changing my behavior from one action to a different behavior that is by definition of lower value to me, making me therefore worse off, poorer than I would be otherwise. Is that correct? Okay. If you like that, there is more where that came from. Go ahead and click on this thumbnail to watch the entire unedited interview, or go ahead and click on this thumbnail to watch another clip. As always, thanks so much.